I'm AP Townley, and this is Roleplay Culture. Let me ask you, how do you feel about bugs?
Oh, I have a parasite.
When it comes to nature-oriented characters, everyone thinks it's all flowers and puppies and pretty green leaves. And they forget or ignore the other side of nature, the predator side. And with that comes everything else associated with death: the rot, the mold, the decay. The things that people don't like to talk about, but are just as important as all that allergy inducing flowers and junk. Death is a part of the life cycle. It could make a very interesting character concept. So here is our next episode of Level Up, the Creepy Crawly. First, we'll start with our ancestry, which is kind of the linchpin of this whole build, and we'll choose the creepiest option, the Thri-kreen. These anthropomorphic praying mantises have a speed of 30 feet and can be medium or small. They have a creature type of monstrosity, which is a really important feature to note. Spells like Charm Person, Whole Person target humanoids only, so they will not work on you. Dark Vision to 60 feet and the Sleepless ability, meaning that you don't need to sleep during a long rest, but you can't do strenuous activities, so mostly you can keep watch. Thri-kreens can't replicate normal speech, so they have developed telepathy that has a range of 120 feet, which means you can communicate during stealth operations. This is very handy. You won't be needing armor because of your chameleon carapace, which will give you a natural armor class of 13 plus dex. Also, your carapace can shift colors to hide you, which will grant you advantage on stealth checks. Also pretty neat. But the real reason we are here is for your secondary arms. Thri-kreens have 4 arms, 2 primary and 2 little small secondary ones. There are some limits on what these secondary arms can do. They can manipulate an object, open closed doors, pick up or discard tiny objects, and wield light weapons. We'll get back to that in a minute. Our ability scores will be as such. We'll use point buy, 15s in dex and wisdom, and 14 in con. We get to add +2 to dexterity, increasing it to 17, and we get a +1 to wisdom, making it 16. We want a decent wisdom score, which will become apparent later. For backgrounds, we're going with the Wild Spacer. This is a background specific to the Spelljammer books, which is also where this ancestry comes from. If your DM won't allow that, then just take Outlander. Wild Spacer will give the skills Athletics and Survival, both of which are very good for this character. We'll get navigational tools, as well as proficiency in space vehicles, which is pretty niche. What we really want is the Wild Space adaptation, which gives us the Tough feat. We're going to primarily be a melee character, so those 2 extra hit points per level are going to help keep us alive. Now, as for a class, we'll start with Ranger. D10 hit die, Strength and Dex saving throws, and 3 skills. We'll take Insight and Perception, both good wisdom skills. We'll also take Stealth, great skill for a Ranger to have, and remember, with Chameleon Carapace, we have advantage on stealth checks. We'll buy our equipment. Remember, we don't need armor. So we'll take 2 short swords and a longbow for a ranged option, and a shield. Why a shield, you might ask? Well, that brings us to the strategy of this character. Remember those 4 arms we have? In one primary arm, we'll have a short sword. In another, we'll have a shield. In a secondary arm, we'll have another short sword. And the other secondary arm we'll keep open for a throwing weapon or just for spellcasting. That's right, we are a melee-focused ranger. One that dual wields short swords and gets the benefits of a shield. That gives us an AC of 18 to start with. Pretty good for a ranger. At first level, we're going to use the optional features presented in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. The optional Favored Foe gives us a lesser hunter's mark. The good news is that it doesn't require our bonus action, leaving us free to use our offhand attacks. The bad news is that it still requires concentration. It lasts a minute, and you can't transfer it to another target. It also only does a d4 damage, and only on the first attack. You can use it a number of times equal to your proficiency modifier. It's not bad, and you can open up some other spellcasting options. Deft Explorer is going to give us the canny feature. We'll get 2 more languages. Pick your favorites. You also pick 1 skill to double our proficiency bonus 4. We already have advantage on stealth checks, so I would say choose Perception, perhaps the strongest skill in the game. Rangers are the scouts of the party, and Perception's key to that. Level 2 gives us a fighting style, and we'll take 2 weapon fighting. This will allow us to add our dex modifier to our offhand attacks. We also learn 2 first level spells and get 2 first level spell slots. Absorb elements is a must. You can use your reaction in response to being hit by an elemental attack and give yourself resistance to that damage. The secondary effect is often forgotten, but it's important here. The first time you hit with an attack in the next round, you do an extra 1d6 damage of that element. For the other spell, I'd suggest a Zephyr Strike. Your movement won't provoke attacks of opportunity while you're concentrating on this spell. Once, when you make an attack, you add an extra 1d8 damage, and you increase your speed by 30 feet. Excellent skirmisher spell, getting you into and out of dangerous areas to assassinate dangerous foes. Third level gives us another first level spell and spell slot. I'd probably take Goodberry, giving us some healing and sustenance with those 10 berries. We get Primeval Awareness as well. The optional version gives us the Speak with Animals spell that we can cast once per day without a spell slot. Definitely something a ranger is going to want to do every now and then. We also choose our Conclave, which brings us to the next bit of the creepy weirdness. The Swarm Keeper lets us gather a swarm of insects or other little creepy crawlies to do our bidding. I mean, we are already a giant bug dude. Why not add some little buggy friends to our cause? Once on each of our turns, we can have our swarm do one of 3 things. We can add 1d6 piercing damage to the target. The target makes a strength saving throw or be moved 15 feet horizontally. Or we can move 5 feet in a direction horizontally. You also get some specialized magic. You learn the Mage Hand cantrip, which is nice because we don't actually have any cantrips yet. You also learn the Fairy Fire spell that reveals invisible enemies and allows for attacks to have advantage. At level 4, we get an ASI. We are going to take the Piercer feat, with so much of our damage being of the piercing type, even our extra Swarm Keeper damage, it just makes sense. Let's also not forget that we have a longbow, and we should use this when the situation calls for it. Piercer gives us +1 to Dex, increasing it to 18. Our AC is now 19, by the way. Once per turn, we can reroll one of our attack's damage dice. And we have several of those. Our short sword damage, our favorite foe damage, and our Swarm Keeper damage. I'm sure one of those dice will benefit from a reroll. And if we get a critical hit, we can add another damage dice to the normal damage from criticals. Level 5 gives us some juicy stuff. We get an extra attack feature, allowing us to make 2 attacks instead of 1 normally. We also get 2 second level spell slots and learn 1 second level spell. What that spell is largely up to you, but I'd probably go with Summoning Beast. Gives us a nice tanky companion. It's the lowest level summoning spell, so it's worth considering. I also might consider Cordon of Arrows. I think it's an underrated spell. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but it lasts for 8 hours. It doesn't require concentration. We are pretty stealthy, so setting up ambushes is pretty easy for us, and Cordon of Arrows is a good ambush spell. Our subclass also gives us the Web spell, which would bind up groups pretty well. And remember, proficiency bonus goes up as well. So 6th level is where things get interesting. Usually, this is where you would dip out of Ranger and start taking levels in Rogue or maybe Fighter, or both. But I don't want to do that. Everyone does that. I want to celebrate the gross side of this archetype. So let's take levels in Druid. Remember to have at least a 13 in Wisdom to do this. We will learn the secret language of Druids, Druidic. As for spells, well, not much is going to change for our spell slots. We're still 3rd level spellcasters. But we will be able to prepare 4 Druid spells of 1st level. Take at least 1 ritual. I say Detect Magic. Healing Word would be a great for some support as well. I would also put forth the Snare spell. I know a lot of people don't like this spell, but it lasts for 8 hours. It lays a trap without concentration, continuing to add to our ambushing abilities. We also get some cantrips, finally. Assuming no one else has taken it, grab Guidance to boost our ability checks. Thorn Whip's a classic for druids. You never know when you might need to drag someone off a ledge or something. Level 7, Druid 2 will give us some good stuff. Spell casting finally goes up a bit. We can wild shape into quarter CR creatures now, like wolves, but we're not going to do that very often. We choose our druid circle, and we will branch out our disgusting habits even further. We may be masters of insects, but now we'll delve into the world of fungi. The circle of spores calls our name. We'll immediately get the chill touch cantrip, which gives a good, decent magic range attack. But what we're really here for is the halo of spores. You can use your reaction to harm something that comes within 10 feet of you or starts their turn there. They make a con save, or they'll take 1d4 necrotic damage. This damage will scale as you level up druid levels. You also get symbiotic entity, which gives you an alternate way to use your wild shape feature. As an action, you would invigorate those spores around you. You get 4 temporary hit points per druid level, and while you have those temporary hit points, you get some extra benefits. You'll roll 2 dice for your halo of spores damage. Your melee attacks do an extra 1d6 necrotic damage. This benefit lasts for 10 minutes or until you lose all of your temporary hit points. So it's important that we avoid damage as much as possible. Having that shield in hand, and with spells like Zephyr Strike allowing us to hit and run, will be important to hanging on to those temporary HP. So how's our damage doing at this point? Well, if we have everything up and going, we'd make 3 short sword attacks, each doing 3d6 plus 4 damage, with the initial attack doing an extra 1d4. We could also use our reaction to do another 2d4 damage to a close enemy. It's very respectable and consistent damage, and that's assuming we don't have any other bigger spells going. Level 8, Druid 3, gives us a second level Druid spells and third level spell slots. I'd probably take Augury. It's a ritual spell, and it can get some good information for you. Casting the Bones seems like a good Druid thing to do. We'll probably just upcast Summon Beast for our third level spells, or maybe Healing Word if it becomes necessary. Our subclass gives us Blindness and Deafness, and Gentle Repose as spells, so those options will always be on the table. Level 9, Druid 4, gives us another ASI. Would probably max out our Dex, which will increase AC, attack and damage with our weapons, initiative, basically just about everything we want to do with this character. Proficiency increases too. You also get another cantrip, see what your party needs, and proceed from there. Truthfully, that remains true for most of the spells that we've chosen so far. Pick what's best for the party. It won't affect the character concept that we've developed. Most of that relies on class abilities. Level 10, Druid 5, gives us 4th level spell slots and 3rd level spells. Pick your favorite. But we also get Gaseous Form, good escape spell, and Animate Dead from our Druid class. Very strange spell for Druid, but a good spell to use at higher levels. Get more minions. Level 11, Druid 6, has our Halo of Spores damage increased to 1d6. We can also turn into 1/2 CR creatures, should we choose, like a black bear. We also get Fungal Infestation. When someone dies within 10 feet of us, we can use our reaction to animate it as a zombie that only has 1 HP for an hour. We can do this a number of times equal to our Wisdom modifier, and it recharges on a long rest. So we're basically using fungal spores we've symbiosed with to infect dead flesh and puppet it for a short while. That's cool and kind of gross. If you wanted to continue this build any further, I would suggest taking another level of Ranger to increase our favorite foe damage, but it's up to you. Most campaigns don't go much further than this. Let's talk magic items. Though I would love to give this character a Moon Sickle, sickles are not finesse weapons, and we're a dex-based character. If you are willing to sacrifice your offhand attack, go for it. But I think you probably stand to have a few +1 or better short swords. Having said that, we do have a free hand to hold a focus, and the Moon Sickle is considered light, so yeah, maybe we should use it. It gives a +2 attack and damage rolls of the weapon, as well as spell attack rolls and spell saving throws, TCs, of our Ranger and Druid spells. You also add a d4 to the number of hit points any spell you cast that restores hit points. There's no limit to how many times this works either, and as far as I can tell, it would work with Good Berry, meaning that instead of 10 berries that heal 1 hit point each, it now gives you 10 berries that heal 1d4 plus 1 hit points, and that's a lot for a first level spell. Staff of Swarming Insects sounds pretty appropriate too. This will allow you to cast a giant insect spell for 4 charges, insect play for 5. We also could create a cloud of insects to obscure things. You finally bring in some bug reinforcements. These are rare items, so they're not too difficult to come past. Just remember, not every table is going to allow a magic item selection. Sometimes you get what you get. So some advice for DMs in dealing with this character. I don't foresee any real issues with gameplay. However, this is a character that is kind of on the creepy side. It's kind of the point, right? There are some gross and disturbing elements with it, even some elements of body horror. So during your session 0, make sure that everyone in the party is aware of what this character involves and is consenting to it. This is not the time to surprise your group with this interesting character concept you've thought of. And finally, for a name, we'll call them Chrysalis. Yeah, that has some interesting implications, doesn't it? If you want more level up videos, we need to subscribe, ring the bell, smash that like button. Tell me in the comments below what kind of creepy character you would make. And I'll see you in the parlor.